Mike Tomlin to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We'll see about that. We'll discuss it. There are some ties with Tomlin and the Bucs for sure. He won a Super Bowl with the Buccaneers, but how realistic actually is it? We'll have a deep dive into that, along with Rachaad White. He went on to a podcast earlier this week, discussed a handful of things, including his time in Tampa, which seems to be the end of it. And then also to his relationship with Bucky Irving, making some things clear for the fans, and also called out the Buccaneers fan base as well. We'll dive into that. And then at the very end, we got Todd Monken visiting. I say visiting. It's like recruiting now for the Bucs, trying to get a good offensive coordinator in Tampa Bay. But Todd Monken, the former Ravens offensive coordinator, is interviewing in person today. We're going to talk all about that, what this would mean for the Buccaneers offense. Also, just looking at his background, what he was able to do when he was in Tampa, also what he did at Georgia and the success there with the Bulldogs, along with how successful that offense was with the Ravens and Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, all of those guys. But before we get started, let me introduce the guys with me. Caleb Skinner, our writer at BucsGameday.com, and our lead editor, River Wells. Gentlemen, good morning. It's been a very, very busy week when you make all these kind of staff changes and the Bucs looking for a new offensive coordinator. This is where we're at, and there's tons of things to discuss. How we doing, gentlemen?
Doing good. Living the dream.
Yeah, fantastic. High of 52 up here in the Boston area, so can't complain. I've got the
I'm envious. Downright envious.
Got the short sleeves out, man. It's nice. Contemplating possibly heading over to Boston for the divisional round matchups here with Drake May and the boys taking on forget who they got. Oh, the Texans. So that would be a pretty cool matchup to go see. But if anything, if we don't go there, head out, maybe check out some of the sports bar scenes out there downtown and whatnot. But yeah, looking forward to talking Buccaneers ball. We've got an OC to hire and some interesting comments made by former Buccaneers running back Rachaad White. So looking to talk about you guys. So let's do it.
Rashaad's always given us some juice, man. Definitely after the seasons, he goes on some shows and he gives his thoughts on what happened during the season.
He is this year.
Locker room was like, yeah,
he certainly is this year.
But yeah, there's a lot to take away from that one as well. But man, the shakeup. What was y'all's reaction to the Mike Tomlin news? Because I'm personally a Steelers fan, and I felt this coming after Monday night with that loss, and there had been chatter that he was just over it all. He had done as much as he could, and this was just time to move on, both parties involved on each side. But what was y'all's initial reaction? Because this absolutely puts ripple effects across the National Football League.
Well, I'll throw out a statistic for you here, Logan. During the Steelers' 7-game playoff losing streak,
well, I don't want to hear
Steelers have led for a grand total of 4 minutes and 56 seconds in those 7 games. So yeah, it's time. I think about. Tomlin's a great coach, I think, for sure. He elevates his talent in a way that I think very few coaches in the NFL can do. But sometimes I think it's just necessary for a change, and I think this is one of those times where the Steelers and Tomlin had to kind of break up, and then if Tomlin wants to go coach another team, he can maybe get a fresh perspective on his coaching, bring in some different staff, and maybe build another contender like he had done for the Steelers for years now, right? So I definitely don't think Mike Tomlin's a bad coach. I think he does a lot of things really well. One of the best coaches maybe in the history of the game. But sometimes it's time for a divorce, just to kind of have both sides get right and see something different and take a different perspective and look at it. And I think that's what's happening here.
Yeah, it's like a shock, but not a shock when you saw the news come, because who else are you going to look at as like being the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers, especially with the run that they had with Cowher and now with 19 years of Tomlin. Just, great success across the board. And that's how you really do it. And it's sustained success at the same time. Albeit, 9-8 every single year, 10-7, whatever it is, isn't necessarily going to, win you a Super Bowl year in and year out. And that's kind of at the point where, things have kind of gotten stale there in Pittsburgh with Tomlin. It's been talked about, season after season. Is it time to move on? Is it not? Tomlin doing it on his own, I think that's probably the best move for both sides, and not, ruining that relationship that he does have with that program. It looks like he's going to be taking a year off. Teams are still reaching out for his services. Obviously, probably one of the more notable head coaching candidates out there that you could say, with the Harbaughs and
Right.
Perhaps the Kubiaks, this coaching carousel cycle. So unfortunately, it doesn't look like he's going to be coaching here in 2026. Things being thrown out about him, becoming a TV personality for a year and then kind of re-examining. You've seen that happen with other coaches as well. So really interesting. Is Tomlin going to want, a head coaching job when he does decide to return to the coaching sphere? Or is he going to kind of want to take a little bit of a backseat, return to his roots as a coordinator on the defensive side of the ball? So very interesting overall. Obviously, we know the ties with the Buccaneers, but we'll dig into that here a little bit as well, I believe. So
yeah,
looking forward to it. I mean, I'm happy for him. He's had great success, and we loved him here during his time in Tampa Bay and what he was able to do here. So we would definitely welcome him back with open arms. I would imagine.
Yeah, I think so. I think you guys said it the best when you talk about a player's coach. That's exactly what he is, and he gets some guys out of. I mean, he had to deal with AB and Le'Veon Bell and Big Ben and multiple Martavis Bryant. I mean, the fact that was able to last even just a season, but multiple ones, and then you had little snippets of George Pickens, and I think Tomlin likes that. It just adds a little extra challenge for him every season. I mean, he's doing it with DK Metcalf, who just, whatever you want to say, definitely put his hands on a fan on the sidelines. Like, he just likes those extra little battles to deal with, but he knows the talent of those players. He knows the talent, and he tries to get every bit of it out of them, even if it's a top talent or some guys that are in a 2 deep and a 3 deep. You see those guys be able to step up because of his coaching discipline, and he's able to do that across his coaching staff as well. But it was time to move on for both parties involved. But it was just a bittersweet, man. It was tough just being a fan of the Steelers yesterday, and like, wow, this is actually happening. And like you said, Caleb, who's going to be the next Steelers head coach? Like, that's, to me, and I know a lot of people are saying the Ravens, and of course the one that looks the best and the one that has all the trinkets and all the toys with it already is, of course, the Ravens, with what you have with an NFL MVP caliber quarterback. But the Steelers are the Steelers, and you are trying to find your next future one that you can hold on to for the next 10, 15 years.
I thought to say job security is pretty good if you're a Steelers.
Yeah, your job security is fine. You have a lot of.
They've had 3 head coaches since the Beatles broke up, so definitely very valuable there.
Yeah. So let's touch on his time with the Buccaneers. So he began his NFL coaching career actually with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 2001 to 2005 under Tony Dungy and John Gruden. He served as the Bucs defensive backs coach. He was part of the 2002 Super Bowl championship staff, earning his first ring as a coach. He definitely learned under that Dungy coaching defensive tree and helped a lot with his leadership style. And just overall, I think that's where you really learn working with players behind the scenes and building those relationships. And then eventually, of course, got that big job and moved on and became that Steelers head coach. But there's a lot of ties in Tampa here, and he does enjoy coming down to Florida. I remember being at a lot of the pro days in Tallahassee with FSU, and that man was there every year. I mean, he was there every single year, and he told a lot of the people around that he just enjoys being down here in Florida, likes the weather. And of course, there's usually, back in the day for Florida State, there were some dominant players on the defensive side of the ball, including one that he wanted to go visit, Derwin James, and then of course Jalen Ramsey, who actually played this year for the Steelers.
Right.
But there are ties here. It's just, how realistic would it be? And I know there's some nuggets out that he wants to maybe get into the media side. He wants to get into the TV, which I think he would be excellent in, and maybe take a year off. But things are telling me, though, that he wants to continue coaching. And I believe he wants to stay as a head coach. And now you wonder, okay, well, for the Bucs side, you've got Todd Bowles, and things have not been pretty. This past season was an absolute disaster for you in the latter half. And you're looking for someone on the complete opposite of a player's coach, someone that can get things a little bit more, I would say, fired up, I'd say, a little bit. Mike Tomlin would be that person, but how realistic would it actually be, guys?
Well, for this year, it wouldn't be, because there's a lot of reports coming out saying that he does not want to coach this year, wants to go into media. I think Adam Schefter just kind of corroborated that report today, that he's probably not going to coach next year. And if you did want to hire Mike Tomlin, it's important to know that he did not get fired. even if he was strongly encouraged to step down. He stepped down, which means that the Steelers still hold the rights to his ability to coach. They still have him under contract there. And in order to acquire Mike Tomlin from the Pittsburgh Steelers, you would have to trade for him. The Buccaneers have done that twice before, and they won a Super Bowl both times. So they're adverse to doing something like that with Bruce Arians and John Gruden, but that's something that they would have to do. Now, I think with saying that he's not going to coach in 2026 this year, 2027, I think becomes very interesting because Todd Bowles could end up getting fired at the end of 2026 if he has a similar season to the one that he did this year. And if that's the case, the Bucs will have a head coach opening, and Mike Tomlin will probably be on the market. And I think he's not going to be a DC. I think he's going to want to be a head coach. Josina Anderson, an NFL insider, did say that he might want to coach somewhere warm. Boy, do we have a warm place for you here in Tampa Bay.
You want a warm training camp?
Right.
Come on down.
We mentioned those ties to Tampa Bay already. He was here from 2001 to 2005, and if the Bucs job becomes available in 2026 or 2027, I should say, which technically, if you're a Bucs fan, you'd hope that's not the case because it means that Todd Bowles would have gotten his stuff together. But if he didn't, another losing season, another playoff blowout, fired, whatever. Mike Tomlin, I think, would be a very viable option here in Tampa Bay. I think he was something he'd be interested in. I think that's definitely something that both sides would be talking about if that happens at the end of next year. There's a lot of talent here. There's no state income tax to be able to lure free agents here. It's a warm place like he could potentially want after a year of doing TV. He can come right back into it. And we'll see where Jason Light's at that time. We'll see where everybody's at in Tampa Bay. But he would be a prime candidate for any team in 2027. But if the Bucs were to fire Todd Bowles at the end of this upcoming season, then I think he'd be a pretty big candidate for Tampa Bay.
Yeah, ditto to what River said. Obviously, the Bucs have done this twice before. You look back at Gruden, you look back with Arians, and they were able to win a Super Bowl. So it would make a lot of sense, but I know a lot of people are saying this is, a pointless conversation, whatever it may be. The understanding is this would be kind of a 2027
it absolutely would be,
yes, type of ordeal for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, not necessarily this season. And while I do think it would be an interesting thought to have Tomlin as a defensive coordinator, that doesn't really strike me as the type of guy. He likes to be in charge of what is going on,
right,
a lot of the time. So you would be looking at a head coach candidate at that point. Every single point that you made just then, River, is exactly what everybody's hearing, what everybody's seeing, what all that we know right now from the whole situation. So it's something that'll have to play out. Todd Bowles might be able to, turn things around this year, even though he's not giving up play calling. So that's, another aspect of it. Do you bring in a guy like a Tomlin next year as a DC and allow him to play or call his own plays as a DC? Who knows where his even thought process is in all of this, but intriguing to think about overall. But one thing that I want to do, and kind of a caveat or, going against the grain here with River and some other people, is that Tomlin knows how to handle some of these, high character issue guys or off-field guys or guys with attitude problems, whatever it may be. And he does bring a little bit more fire than Todd Bowles. But if you look at it, they're kind of the same guy. Defensive-minded head coach, kind of middle of the road when it comes to their records overall, no matter if it's playoffs or in the regular season. And that's kind of what you're stuck with. Both players, coaches, as mentioned before, perhaps so Tomlin a little bit better at being that player's coach than Todd. So it's like you're going from one guy to another that are equally similar in my mind, and you're really not upgrading, that position as the head coach, or potentially even on the defense side of the ball, unless Tomlin is the DC and is able to devote all of his time to that side of the ball. So just something to think about there. Not necessarily a huge improvement, yes, but also not something that is going to really be a game changer for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and where they necessarily want to head, albeit this is the NFC South. Let's remember, this is the NFC South, not the AFC North. So you're going to have a little bit better of an opportunity to win, your division, make the playoffs year in and year out. And then who knows, you get hot at the right time, reach the playoffs, and you can go on a run and win a Super Bowl. So a lot of things to look at when it comes to Tomlin potentially being with the Buccaneers, but he does have all these ties. There's a lot of things that you can tie him into this state, into this region, into this area as a whole as well. So I'm gonna follow it. I'm imagining he'll be in TV in some sort of fashion this year and then come back out and put his name back into the hat, especially with how wild this coaching carousel has been this year already. So give himself a bit of a break, reset a little bit, and then, go from there. And then we'll see where he's at, because ultimately it's going to be his decision, because they'll have his pick of the litter ultimately when that time comes.
Yeah, as we're seeing right now, little do we think that, a while back we thought, oh, this is just a small coaching carousel. It won't be too crazy. There won't be a lot of big names, I should say. And then boom, boom, boom. I mean, it's just it's nonstop. And there might be more. I know a lot of the NFL insiders are hinting that we could see even more changes, and as a ripple effect of John Harbaugh, specifically, if Mike Tomlin's not going to be coaching in 2026. It makes things a lot interesting. Even with Mike Tomlin not coaching in 2026, it still has it in their heads, owners' heads, of preparing for 2027. As we're discussing right now, some of these teams that are in this spot where they're on the hot seat of their head coach, you've got to be able to look ahead and prepare for these things. Yeah. And you've got to think owners are doing this. And so it certainly certainly chatter is happening. I mean, we're having a few comments in here, this is here on YouTube from Bantry saying, I hope the Bucs at least reach out and ask if he'd be interested in Tampa Bay. We can always trade for his rights like we did with Bruce Arians. And, the thing about it for me is, if we know it's very likely that he's not going to be coaching in 2026. I think the Bucs are solidified with rolling again with Todd Bowles, willing to give this one more chance. If the Bucs don't make the playoffs, and you're looking at the Saints, who felt like they had a little bit of run there at the end, it feels like they've got their future at quarterback, had a strong draft as well. And then, of course, the Falcons, it's going to be very concerning if you're the Bucs fan base if you see them go after John Harbaugh, because they have all the talent in the world, and they're going to be looking for a new GM, and that's what John Harbaugh is wanting to do. He wants to bring in his own GM. That's one that you're like, that's not going to be the easiest kind of battle. And then the Carolina Panthers just went and won the division from you, and they feel strongly about where they're headed. So it's not going to be an easy division next year for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and they have to hit right on the offensive coordinator position. We're going to talk about Todd Monken here in just a little bit, but it is not going to be the easiest, gentlemen, to go out and win this divisional title once again, and it's going to be a battle and more of a challenge than I think Todd Bowles has had in a very long time in this division to do so.
I would agree.
Yep.
Yeah. And, we'll see. That the ties are certainly there with Tomlin. He wants to be in warmer weather and such. And it'd be very, very intriguing to see what would happen. But the Bucs still have to move on, and they're going to roll with Todd Bowles in 2026. But 2027, we shall see. We shall see. Now, let's go into Rachaad White real quick, because I know we're getting a lot of comments about Todd Monken, which we're certainly going to go into in just a minute, as he's currently in Tampa interviewing for the offensive coordinator job. But Rachaad White was on the Loose the Cannons podcast. I believe it was last night, and he had a lot to talk about. And he's done this before too, after seasons, and opens up about the play, usually it's about how much time he gets on the field. And that was, of course, discussed once again on here, but he brought up some interesting points that I thought we should go through. So he talked about Josh Grizzard, the offense and the offensive play calling, and, wasn't too much of a fan of it. He said, I've been in the huddle sometimes before and be like, yeah, no, this ain't it, but you still got to run it, which is tough. He was talking about the play calling from Josh Grizzard and throughout the season, and said that was very up and down for him. And, you're not usually going to hear that from a whole ton of players, but Rachaad White has been very open. I mean, right after the season practically ended, he's throwing out plane GIFs and photos of him and Jaden Daniels out there with the Washington Commanders. So he's expected to be fully moved on from the Bucs, but he is, bringing up some points here and is being open to his thoughts on how that offense looked from Josh Grizzard. What were y'all's takeaways from this?
Yeah, Rashaad's not shy on social media or on the podcast circuit. I mean, this might rub some fans the wrong way. I could see that, but I think, some of it's decently valid. Rachaad White's usage in particular, going through this year, you would have this thing where he would bust off a big run. This is not just Rachaad White, I should say. Really, every running back in the NFL, in the Bucs rotation, have a big run or a big play, a big catch, and then they'd be subbed out, kind of due to the way that Grizzard and Todd Bowles would want to rotate these backs, the three-headed monster. Bowles told us at the beginning of the year, we're going to ride the hot hand, and then he didn't, right? So that's going to rub some people the wrong way, especially guys like Rachaad White. If you look at Rachaad White and the Bucs running backs, Rachaad had the best yards per carry of any Bucs, running back with meaningful snaps this year. So the fact they didn't use him quite as much when Bucky came back and Bucky was struggling and he still couldn't quite get as many snaps, I could understand the frustration with that. So he's got a lot to say. Grizzard got fired. So I'm sure, he's not too upset about saying some of those things about the offense and how it went. But that wasn't the only thing he said, but he did definitely bring that one up too.
Real quick though, before Caleb speaks on it, he also put out a GIF whenever some of the, I don't know if it was just Grizzard, but there was a handful, of course, of defensive players that were coaches that were let go and fired. He put out a GIF of Smelly and putting some kind of
got to clear the air. Clear the air.
Like it's smelly, get him out of here type of deal.
Yeah.
Which is, I don't like that. I think that's definitely not a good look. And I believe that was taken down. And I'm sure his agent said, let's not do that.
He mentioned on the podcast that he was banned from Twitter now by his PR lady. So
his agency said, we are going to take away your social media from you. So
agent shut down fairly quickly. But I mean, it's nothing new from Rachaad, right? We've seen him be very cryptic, whether via his Instagram, via his X account, whatever it may be. He's always been a very transparent, guy in general, whether it's been with the media, whether it's been with us here on this podcast, whether it's, been with the loose cannon guys. I remember, was it last offseason, they kind of opened up their house and like cooked wings with Rachaad. And so he's very transparent, very open with not only, us, the media, not only with, people who are higher up in national media, but also the fan base as well. And so you can't ask for much more than a guy being, honest and truthful and completely who he is. And that's who Rashaad's been the whole time. Yeah. Do we not like it? Sometimes, obviously, we don't want that, kind of stuff floating around out there, or like you're posting or changing your profile picture to you and Jaden Daniels with, 3 games left in the season to go. But you gotta, commend him. He's been nothing but, great during his time here. Having those starting duties taken over by Bucky Irving probably hurt him a little bit, even though he is very honest forward too about saying, it doesn't really bug me as much as some people think. Obviously, if you're, one of the best players in the entire world, you're going to want the ball in your hands no matter what. But it came down to, I mean, we all griped about the play calling this season, how Josh Grizzard's only good in that first drive of the game, not riding the hot hand, as River mentioned. I mean, it was with all the backs, nobody was running it, and then you still get the same answers from Todd Bowles in the middle of the season. We're going to ride the hot hand, and you don't ride the hot hand, and it obviously didn't work. And he touched on a little bit about, how the verbiage is very similar, but it's more so about the timing of calls that he really saw that, Liam was able to be extremely successful at, that Josh just kind of didn't have a clue on the timing of when to call plays, because he's like, the plays weren't bad. He's like, honestly, it's the same stuff we've ran for the past 2 years, but it's kind of the timing of these and when they were called. And I mentioned the same thing in the last podcast, I believe. Yeah. And that's something that's kind of bothered me, is like, well, you got to be able to know when to call plays and when not to. And the guys in Stank and Samir over there at Loose Cannons were talking about, are you ready for another first down run? And that's something else that has plagued the Buccaneers for years now too, is it's too telling of what you were able to do on the offensive side of the ball. Josh is obviously no longer here. We'll see what he does with the rest of his career. I'm sure it's still going to be promising because he's very young. And honestly, for Rachaad, he had mentioned, on that podcast as well that, who knows, they might want to bring him back. We'll see what it looks like. But at this point, kind of looks like he's setting sail out of Tampa Bay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he talked. Yeah, and he spoke a little bit more too on the future of the offense. He wants it to do well. He also spoke on Bucky Irving, so it kind of got mixed in here a little bit. They were talking about I believe it was it Zach Robinson?
Yeah, Zach
Who they were
Robinson.
discussing? Yeah, in the offense, he's a big hot name right now for, offensive coordinator job, could potentially be Buccaneers. There's a lot of names out there, but he's one of those. And it's been, you got B. John Robinson, you got Drake London. I mean, you got, who depends on who they have at quarterback moving into next year, but that offense has been able to do some things for them. But it kind of got talked about in here because of how they use running backs. I mean, when you have Bijan, though, Bijan's on one of
they also have Tyler Algier, who
three.
is Tyler Algier is also a pretty solid backup if you ask me. So he had plenty of weapons there, and then Kyle. Pitts, so
oh yeah, exactly.
That's all pro Kyle Pitts.
Yeah, Kyle Pitts, baby, for the former Gator. But he said, I'm going to try to just start with this. I'm just going to be honest. And then honestly, how I'm advocating for him is too, because I'm rooting for Bucky, obviously. And now he's kind of leaning into, what the future is going to look like for the Bucs at the offense coordinator position. He says, regardless of what people want to say, right? And, they don't like each other. He is mad at Bucky this. No, I really want Bucky to be great, have a great career. Just to be honest with you, to see. Now, that was practically it. It was kind of hard. It got mixed in there just randomly, just him talking about that him and Bucky do have a good relationship. They're strong with one another. And I do fully believe that. We're there at practices, we're there in the locker room and such, we're there after games. There's no ill will toward each other. Now, as Rachaad White, as we can tell, he feels strongly about himself and that he believes that he should be out on the field more and have better opportunities and such. Absolutely. I mean, he's very confident in himself, and that's completely fine. And like you just said, River, I mean, you could say he was, of course, your best back this last season. Bucky Irving couldn't get things going once he got back from his injury. Now the interior offensive line certainly did not help that whatsoever in the play there. And you saw that when Bucky was going off in Miami with some of his offensive linemen, Tristan Wirfs holding him back. So he was a little irritated, but still Bucky, I thought was overthinking things, would go to the wrong place, and you just definitely saw a little bit of that sophomore slump once he came back from his injury. So Rachaad White was your best back last year, but he did want to make it clear to everybody, since he does feel like the fan base was making it out to seem that they both did not like each other. And I thought Rachaad White already kind of cleared that air and had some really good comments on that when we were at training camp, where he talked specifically about that, and he was ready to take on whatever role that the Bucs asked him and Josh Grizzard asked him to do, and he was ready to be that RB2 or that backup role to Bucky Irving, since he was a solidified starter.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. I think Rachaad did exactly what he was asked to do. We talked about how good he is in pass blocking as well, the value he brings to that aspect of the game. But yeah, when you're running the way that you're running, and Rachaad was the hot hand last year, or I guess this year, and they didn't give it to him. So understandable to see some frustrations from that point, but I think the relationship has always been pretty good, and I actually don't think Rachaad would mind doing that again somewhere else, to be honest with you. I think he will have opportunities to be a RB1, so he'll definitely look into that. But I think being in that supplementary role and being a playmaker like he is, he adds a lot of value to an offense, even if that value is not flashy and if that value is not necessarily in the straight-up running game. So he'll find a pretty decent place to land, I think, and he'll continue to play that way.
Yeah, that relationship has seemed to be, good ever since even Bucky came in. It was addressed. I mean, there was no, ill will from either of them on playing time or anything like that. So good to see him cleared up again. Not that we necessarily needed that to happen, but if you're falling out of, you're losing snaps, you're falling out of rotation probably way more than you actually should be, I'd be frustrated and want to test the waters too, right? Like if I'm doing my job and all of a sudden some of my work is being taken away and given to somebody else, what am I going to think, right? Like you are going to let me go soon, or, something of that nature. And I'm going to be on the outs looking in, trying to find a new job, because all of a sudden my responsibilities are being taken away from me. So I understand, where that comes from. You got to look back and say, these are people, these are human beings too, right? Like they have feelings. It's not just all a transaction. when it comes to them. They're working for their livelihood. They're working for their families. They're trying to, make as much money, be as productive as they can in whatever they do. So that way that when they do retire, they're going to be, set for life or for their generations to come after them and their legacy. So you look at it that way, just as way as we all fight for jobs. We all, apply to jobs over and over, 300, 500 jobs at a time until you're able to land one. Fortunately, these guys are in a position to be able to do so. And then when it's, teetering that line of you don't want me, or why am I, still here when you're not giving me the work that I know that I'm able to take on, so on and so forth, you're going to look for somewhere else that has a little bit more of a grounded situation that's going to allow you to be able to be successful and grow in what you do. And currently the Buccaneers haven't been able to provide him that. And so I don't feel bad anyway. Bucky is in a great spot. Obviously, if Rashad leaves, they're going to have to bring in somebody else to kind of be that change of pace back there with Bucky Irving, because Sean Tucker could also be on his way out here in the open free market and free agency. So the Buccaneers have some work to do in that running back room. Yeah, they have a good start with Bucky being there, but I'm sure those two will keep in touch no matter where they end up and remain friends. And Bucky has already been on record saying, he leaned a lot on Rashad early on whenever he first got to the NFL, and like the do's and don'ts and things of that nature. So I'm sure they'll be able to rely on each other and still speak, but good to see that their relationship is still good overall.
And I think this could really depend on what they bring in at offensive coordinator. Like he said, could come back. The Bucs might have interest in bringing Rashad back. I just don't know if that's going to be the case. Certainly with all the social media stuff.
No,
I don't think that's going to be the case. But I think we're going to have some pretty interesting conversations this offseason, and it's going to be intriguing to see what they do, like you just said, Caleb, with Sean Tucker. And you got to hope that was just a sophomore slump for Bucky Irving. If not, and things don't look so great in year 3 for Bucky, and of course he just came back from multiple injuries this last year, so that certainly hurt him a lot. The offensive line, like I just said, did not help anything.
Those injuries also had a big mental impact on him, so there was like a blockage there. So that
he went through a lot. On field and off the field, just things that he was going through mentally, and he opened up to us about that, and I can fully feel for him on that. You feel like you're off on your own, like we've heard a lot of players say. Jalen McMillan said it, he said it was tough to even come in the locker room and talk to people. He told us that, and whenever they were doing locker room cleanouts, like he just said, what am I going to tell anybody? What can I do? I can't help motivate them for the game and everything. I'm not even there. I'm not even there. And all I got to do is just take care of myself. But for Bucky, it was just like that. It's not just, physical battle. It's a mental battle more than anything. And you just want to be out there with your guys. And that's something Bucky went through. So I think you'll see a better season from him in year 3. But they do have there's a big discussion to have about that running back room, what that looks like and the future moving forward. And that's going to really more rely on when we talk about, a potential guy like Todd Monken or whoever that is at offensive coordinator, what that running back room means to what this offense is going to do in 2026. We shall see. It's going to be interesting. But real quick, talk about one more thing real quick. He actually called out the fan base, called out the Bucs fan base. And, I understand this part a good bit, but I know that we'll have some interesting takes here from you guys. Definitely that you've lived down here in this area for so long, like you guys have. But he called out, the fans in the stands and the attendance there, specifically not a lot of Bucs fans being in the stands they're getting like overtaken by opposing fan bases. He said, man, please stop letting other teams come in at the home stadium and take over that stadium like that, bro. That's just horrible. We can't even respect some of y'all because we don't even feel like y'all are real fans. That's tough.
He's not wrong.
No,
I think he could have said a little bit
more time. I mean, you could say that about a lot of what Rashad Wright has been saying. I think the whole offseason, but
right, and that goes back to him being honest. Like he's just truthful, and he's gonna say, what needs to be said, and he's not wrong in the slightest. I mean, you go to Philly games. Anybody really from the Northeast that comes down here is going to travel extremely well.
Wait till the Steelers come down in Tampa. It might be 70-30. And that's
the Lions always pack the house.
The Lions too. And it's when you're a small market team, like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, small market, big ticket, whatever you want to call it, whatever they say over there in Jacksonville. But Yeah, when you're a small market team, things like this are going to happen, especially when your team is not producing the results that make fans want to come to a game and spend $20 on a tall boy of beer, and sit there and watch a team that's not very good. It's less than ideal. I mean, ticket prices aren't horrible, but tickets need to be, if you're a season ticket holder or whatever, and you're selling these tickets to opposing fans, I get it. You got to make your quick buck, whatever it may be, but do your best to try and sell it to a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fans if you can. But even then, there's no guarantee. It's just kind of how the cookie crumbles. Ultimately, when the Bucs are good, Ray J is a lot of Tampa Bay Buccaneers fans. You saw it during the Brady days. Obviously, that's a big ticket guy that people are going to be able to come and watch. But when you're winning Super Bowls, you're competing in the playoffs year in and year out. You're not just skating by. You're going to be able to retain that. And the Buccaneers have a huge problem in being able to do so, which is probably part of the reason why it was, you buy your season tickets for 2 years after the Brady years to kind of try and retain some of that viewership there from your own fans. But those guys can just sell it off whenever. But there's no real fix to it until you start winning. Winning solves all problems. So when that starts happening, you're going to start to see more Buccaneers fans than opposing fans. But that's always going to be an issue in Tampa Bay. You're a small market. You're not one of these big cities that have, we're just in year 50 as a franchise. We don't have, decades of fandom built along us right now. So, or centuries, whatever it may be. So something you're gonna have to deal with, and it is what it is. But I can understand the frustration from a player standpoint, because you're like, man, we're at home, and it sounds like we're at an away game, and that's just something you got to deal with as a Buccaneers player and as a fan.
Yeah, I wrote an article about this on BucsGameday, Buccaneers on SI. Make sure you guys go check that out if you want to go a little bit more in depth on this. But I included a quote from Todd Bowles. Todd Bowles did speak on this very thing, I believe, during the 49ers game around week 6. Someone asked him, how is it to see these opposing fan bases take over your stadium week in, week out? He said, I think it's like that in the state. I spent a lot of time in Miami, and a lot of people from the East, the Northwest, have homes down here and snowbirds and everything else. So you're going to get a lot of transplants, fans from other teams. I kind of got used to that in Miami. It doesn't mean we don't have our own crowd, because we have a bunch of fans coming out, but you can't fault somebody for living in Florida being a fan of their home team. So yeah, I think there is an intrinsic problem with this sort of thing in Florida. And like you guys mentioned, from the Northeast, the Midwest particularly, people from California probably aren't going to fly down to Florida to watch the Rams play the Bucs, but because they've already got that sunny weather and a lot of transplants of their own over there.
They don't even go to SoFi, brother. So
that's right. That's true. They don't even go to SoFi. That's a good point. But yeah, it's a lot of those northern teams, the snowbirds, as Todd aptly called them, will just come into the stadium, and you can't really do much about that except for win football games. I've always said Al Davis had the best piece of wisdom in sports history when he said that just win, baby, because really you can renovate stadiums, create new ticket packages, cause blackouts, to try and do everything to try and get fans into your stadium. But at the end of the day, the cure-all to doing that is winning football games. So I think that's the way to do it.
I thought there was a good turnout, though, in the pouring down ass rain, though, Rashad, at your game against
in the Brady years. The Brady years did really well.
That was a good turnout
really
there.
Well.
Just so happens to be that your offense isn't that exciting, not that fun. And I'll be honest with you, same thing happened for FSU. Offense is dog dookie cheeks in 2024 and 2025. Who wants to put their ass in stands and watch that? I mean, come on now. I'm trying to speak for the fans here, but I'm not going to go try to watch a game. Definitely if I live in Florida and I can just go to the beach or whatever that day or whatever, if the offense ain't doing jack diddly. But I saw a good turnout to me, and I was on hand. I wasn't out there in the pouring down rain, but a lot of those fans were out there pulling for you. Or just win games.
Yeah, I mean,
think about that one. Think about that one. That one might help.
We'll see how it goes, but I think that's the key.
That one might help.
That's the key. Yeah.
A fun offense to watch and win games will put your fans in the stands and help you. But when the Steelers come, it won't be even close. That's going to be rough. That one's going to be rough. There's going to be a lot of terrible towels in the stands. But let's talk about Todd Monken here. Unless there's anything else y'all want to take away from that Rachaad White interview.
On to Todd Monken, I think.
Todd Monken, guys. Todd Monken. So this is a big interview, of course, like we said earlier. The former Ravens offensive coordinator had a lot of success with the Georgia Bulldogs, won 2 national championships there. Then took on the job as the offensive coordinator with the Ravens. Just going off of him in 2024, the top NFL offense, led the league in total offense, 424.9 yards per game, rushing offense of 187.6, and red zone touchdown efficiency, 74.2%, becoming the first team in NFL history to surpass 4,000 passing and 3,000 rushing yards in the same season. He's had a lot of production all across the board with the Ravens offense, ranked first in red zone touchdown percentage, rushing yards per game, and passing rating, while ranking second in points per game and total yards per game. So that's his time with the Ravens. Of course, like I just said there, spent some time with the Georgia Bulldogs, and there was even some chatter, was it the Canales hiring, offseason hiring, whenever Monken, there was talk, maybe the Bucs will go after Monken.
Yeah.
Bring him back.
Yep.
So he had back-to-back national titles with the Georgia Bulldogs in 2021 and 2022. That offense was absolutely rolling. Sorry, River. I know you hate the Georgia Bulldogs more than
I really do. I really do.
I know you do. But they averaged 39.8 points per game and 472 yards per game in those 2 seasons. In 2022.
That's all right.
Yeah, Georgia led the nation in total net yards, 7,500.
Is that Carson back at quarterback?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's been the quarterback in Georgia since 1983.
And Stetson Bennett as well. Stetson Bennett, actually, I believe he was a Heisman finalist as well. Yeah, he did 4,127 passing yards and 27 touchdowns. So we all know about the ties, though, with the Buccaneers. He was in 2018. He led the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense and led the NFL in passing yards per game and finished third in total yards, setting franchise single season records in total yards, 6,648 in total, but in passing 5,358 and 36 touchdowns on air. Across his 3 seasons with the Bucs are ranked second in passing yards per game, 279.5, and 6th in total offense, 375.1 yards per game, with a balanced scoring output of 22.6 points per game.
Woof.
And the one thing is about the ties, of course, with coaching up Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. When those 2 guys were there or here, things were clicking well for them. And now when we think about what is going to attract a Mike Evans to come back for another season, you could certainly point to this and see all right, that guy right there is going to get number 13 back and the pewter and red in 2026. Red and pewter. It's red and pewter.
It's red and pewter, guys.
You
wouldn't say golden garnet.
That's right. That's
No,
right. So I'm getting down the colors and everything.
Or if you're UF, you say orange and blue for some reason because that's the wrong way around. But that's just how we say it. Yeah. Monken's an interesting one because Bucs fans obviously will remember the name from when he was actually offensive coordinator here. A little while ago. So that would definitely be a retread in the absolute purest sense of the word, since he has already been an offensive coordinator in Tampa Bay. But he on and off had play calling duties there. Dirk Cutter liked to take them away from him at certain points during the tenure. And then his work with the Georgia Bulldogs was excellent. He also worked with Baker Mayfield in Cleveland in 2019 for his rookie year, so he has some familiarity with him there. I think whenever you want to...
Supposedly.
Supposedly.
I was listening to Stroud's one of his shows and said that he spoke with Monken after a game and was talking about Baker and just said he absolutely adores that guy. He loves him.
Well, you're going to have to if you want to come to Tampa Bay and be the offensive coordinator, because Baker's got his good and his bad, and you're going to have to love all of it. But I think whenever you have big change like you have in Tampa Bay, which is except for Todd Bowles, but the rest of the staff, right, being a lot of staff being fired, you want to go the opposite direction that you have been going to try and mix something up. And the last few years, the Buccaneers have been going with young offensive minds with a really sky-high ceiling. And they found some of that ceiling with guys like Dave Canales and Liam Cohen, right? And then didn't work out with Josh Grizzard, couldn't quite hit that ceiling. So do they go with instead a seasoned, experienced offensive coordinator? Monken will turn 60 years old in February, to kind of buck the trend of the recent hires that they've been making. I think that's definitely a possibility. I think Todd Bowles would probably be into that, trying to mix something up. And if Monken wants to come, Monken wants to come. I still think that John Harbaugh is going to get a job. He might. He's in New Jersey today. We'll see if he leaves. But if he does or doesn't, or he goes to the Falcons in Atlanta, right? I mean, he'll want Monken to be his offensive coordinator. That's kind of how the Harbaughs work. I mean, Jim Harbaugh just fired Greg Roman, who had previously to being fired yesterday, had been Jim Harbaugh's offensive coordinator his entire history in the National Football League. So the Harbaughs really like to keep their guys and not change them. They're very loyal. I think John's going to want him, so you're going to lure him away. I do think, unfortunate news for Bucs fans, the Eagles fired Kevin Patullo at offensive coordinator. That's going to be a very, very highly sought after job for an OC. They have a wealth of weapons, maybe A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Saquon Barkley, great offensive line. A lot of great weapons there. Jalen Hurts is there. He's up and down, but if you're able to mold him into the kind of quarterback you want him to be, people have had success with that. So that's going to be a big job. So there's some competition, but Monken's here in Tampa Bay. The wonderful Greg Allman tweeted that the Bucs do still have some other interviews lined up, so they're not going to perhaps offer him a contract today, but he'll be really high on the list of candidates. Rick Stroud has mentioned that the Bucs are really interested in Monken. A few other sources out there have mentioned the same thing, so a lot of noise.
Yeah, who knows? What direction? I mean, you've brought in guys like a David Shaw, you've brought in Brian Callahan. I'm just like, what are we doing with
Mike Kafka?
Yeah. I'm just like,
Mike Kafka developed Patrick Mahomes, Caleb. Come on.
Yeah, because that's all development. Everything that Patrick Mahomes does is prototypical quarterback development. Yeah. Are you kidding me? Get out of here. No way. I'm just like, roll my eyes. And you get a Zach Robinson in, you get a Todd Monken in. Okay, now I'm starting to feel a little bit better about this and where it's headed. And obviously some guys later in the week, as Greg had mentioned, there. And we'll see if that is also going to include a guy like a Nate Shieldhouse, who is still obviously coaching with the Rams in the playoffs. You could see some more coaches that are on playoffs teams start to become available too. And they might not be able to interview right now because they're in the midst of this playoff run. But the Monken thing, it's not a bad idea. I mean, Chris Godwin, that was his rookie year when Todd was here. So you were able to see kind of him make that transition from college into the NFL rather seamlessly, kind of just put it on the map immediately there with Monken there. Obviously, DK meddling and whatever Monken was able to do did not help things there on the offense, as well as your quarterback at the time being Jameis Winston. Did not help your offense, no matter how high flying and, successful and highly ranked it was in the league. You still had the turnover issues. You had the inability to finish, drives and things of that nature back then. But it makes you feel positive about bringing in a guy like Todd, though, because yes, he has worked with and had one of the top offenses in the NFL with Lamar Jackson there in Baltimore and with Derrick Henry as a runner and been able to do all kinds of things. But it makes you feel even better with what he was able to do at the collegiate level at Georgia, making a guy like a Carson Beck and developing him into the quarterback that we see today, and taking a guy like a Stetson Bennett and making him, even draftable, and, taking and winning a national championship with a guy like Stetson Bennett, as your quarterback. That looks really good on your resume. Obviously we know with Georgia's defense and things during that time, they were just vaunted. They could keep a team in games, but Georgia was still able to put up points on offense. So he likes a strong running game, and then he'll be able to open it up. I think it would be a great fit. Obviously ties with Baker, ties with Mike, ties with Chris, works extremely well. I mean, you get, kind of an old head guy like a Monken and you pair him with another old head guy and Todd Bowles, maybe that works out. Maybe they start to see a little bit more eye to eye, if you will, compared to, a younger guy in Todd Bowles and how they like to operate. But at the same time, is that going to be too much? Like, is that too much like agreeance? Do we need a little bit more rift in between these guys to be able to see it be successful on the field? Who knows? He's a proven coach, right? You got a proven coach. You go get a proven coach if you have the ability to. It's definitely against the grain of what you've been working with the Canales, with the Cohen, with the Grizzards. So I've been kind of a big proponent of that. Like, let's get away from some of this, not necessarily the young guys, but let's go away in a different route. Maybe go to the Shanahan tree, maybe do this or the other. But I've also been a component for bringing in a young guy like a Nate Shieldhouse. So I think it would be a good hire. Wouldn't be my first pick, but I think it would be a great pick. And it all comes down to, where is Harbaugh going? Is Harbaugh going to want him still? I'm assuming that he will, because he's been with him. As River mentioned, the Harbaughs love to bring their guys along with them. So if he blows you away and he's got a plan for what's to move ahead, and you don't think any of these other guys that you're interviewing later in the week, you put an offer on the table today. And, you take it or leave it. We're going to continue with the rest of our interviews until you tell us yes or no, and then we'll go from there. So I wouldn't mind having Monken back. Yeah, he's on the older side, but at the end of the day, you're trying to make it through the next, 5 years or so right now if you're the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I think Monken, even though he's getting into his 60s now, it's not really going to, make or break the bank when it comes to his age and the potential of, his mind kind of being surpassed here in the next few years.
If I'm Todd Bowles, I want Monken a lot here, because I'm like, well, that didn't really work with Grizzard. I'm going to find some money that's going to be their first time play caller once again. That's a big risk for Bowles. If he wants to be the head coach of the Bucs in 2027, I think Monken, someone that's solidified, that has been a play caller, one that has been able to have a lot of success like him, then that's probably the direction. And I'm trying my hardest to keep that man in Tampa. I know, like Greg said, and he reported that there is going to be a lot more interviews. So, a contract likely is not going to be laid out there today. But I'm sure Bowles, though, is thinking differently, is like, hey, he's doing the whole recruiting sheet here and says like, hey, you love that quarterback. Don't you love that quarterback? Well, why don't you just come coach him then? Why don't you just come over here and coach him, be the offensive coordinator for him? And hey, you remember those two guys, Chris Godwin, Mike Evans? If you come back, maybe Mike Evans will come back as well. Let's just make a reunion out of this, plus some new pieces with this offense. Emeka Egbuka, who, had an explosive start to the 2025 season, his rookie year. And then you've got a Tez Johnson, who's a really gadgety guy. Imagine what you could do with him, Monken. And then, you jump over to Bucky Irving. You feel really highly that you got a running back there, not a Derrick Henry, but you got a different style of running back there to work with. And you got some pieces on you got the best you got your tackles. Your tackles are all there. You feel strongly, of course, of Luke Gedeke. And then what you have an all-pro Tristan Wirfs. You want to see some improvement in year 3 from Graham Barton as your center, but you like what you had with Bredesen before he was injured. And, of course, Cowdy Malk as he continued to take his rise and improve as well. So you still feel strong about your offensive line moving forward with your coach.
I do have a question about this, too, because it kind of became a problem in Baltimore with Derrick Henry. There's multiple times during this season that you would see Derrick Henry being taken out of the game. And we were just harping on the fact that we're not riding the hot hand. And this happened multiple times with Derrick Henry in Baltimore this season. Now, I can't tell you if this was a Harbaugh decision or if this was a Monken decision, but taking Derrick Henry out of the game and then you go on to lose the game, I just don't understand it, especially when he's having a really good game. He's really hot. He's popping off, and then you take him out of the game. Do you if that's Monken's doing? Yeah. We don't need that here in Tampa Bay. So what are your thoughts on that? And what would your
if I had to lean on it, just being around the Harbaugh a lot of times throughout my time, he would be more hands-on on the Derrick Henry snaps, I would say. Now, Monken has I think at the end all say so on some things there. Of course, he is the OC, and that's where it goes, and that's how things as it should be. But Harbaugh, he's earned that right to say, all right, that's enough, or you know what, let's keep him in there type of deal. A lot of things happen, too, on their game preps throughout the week where Harbaugh's talking about Derrick Henry, and there were some fumbles earlier in the year and, called him out on it. Like, there's some things that have to be better there. and they restricted him a little bit, and then you see him just go full steam ahead, and then he's out there on the field every single snap, it feels like, and he's running for 200 plus yards. I'd say Harbaugh is a little bit more handsy than other coaches are with their offensive coordinators. I don't know, but that's something that, it's a good point. But is Bucky Irving? Bucky Irving is not Derrick Henry, and he's not going to be able to take that on. As we saw this last year, although Bucky Irving had been healthy throughout his whole playing career, he told us he never dealt with any kind of injuries. NFL's NFL, man. You've got different sized animals coming at you at different type of angles at a way faster speed, and I think Bucky Irving learned that really quickly, and that's something to monitor, I think, when we're talking about the running back discussion of what is going to work with this running back room moving forward if Bucky Irving continues to deal with certain things like this. I don't think he's going to be a pure RB1. Is he going to start?
Well, you don't have to be. You don't have to be.
Yeah.
You don't have to be. I mean, look at Alvin Kamara in New Orleans. Fantastic career for running back, right? Never had 1,000 yards rushing in his entire career because he always had a really good supplementary power back to help rotate those snaps, and they still utilize him as a weapon that way. So Kamara was running back one, but he wasn't a workhorse, right? He wasn't a bell cow. That's what Bucky Irving's going to have to be. And there's going to be some options in free agency if you really want to bring someone on to be able to do something like that. But I think the Bucs did not have a power back the last few years. They would use Sean Tucker in that situation, but he's a speed guy. He's not a power guy. So I think a guy that can get you a first down on 3rd and 3, 3rd and 2 is someone that they could really use to supplement with Bucky Irving, kind of change in and out.
Well, Derrick Henry is going to come down to Tampa, right?
Of course.
The thing
about Monken is going to be how modern his offense can be, right? Because Monken is turning 60 in February. He's had a lot of play calling experience. Doesn't really come from a specific tree of a play caller, but he's worked under a lot of different guys. Most recently, the Harbaugh family as an offensive family. Actually, John Harbaugh is a special teams guy. Jim is an offensive guy who used to play quarterback, but yeah, how modern can his offense be, and how good can his offense be without someone like Lamar Jackson, arguably the best quarterback in the National Football League, piloting your team? I think he did a pretty good job with Jameis Winston in Tampa Bay. And Jameis Winston, sorry to my FSU fans, is not a very good quarterback. So I think with that in mind, he definitely has shown a lot from him. As an offensive coordinator, he has developed talent like he did in Georgia as well. So that's going to be all good. Can he run a modern NFL offense and keep up with the times at his age? Is he going stale? How is the situational game awareness? Those are the questions that we'll ask.
There's a lot, man. There's a lot. Who knows? We might be live on here before the end of the week, but we deeply appreciate everybody hanging out with us this morning. I know a lot of you already have. We're almost at 25 likes. That was our goal. We're at 17 right now, but we deeply appreciate everybody coming in here, commenting, asking questions and such. It means a lot to us as well. And just to throw this up here too, the growth that we've been able to see through our subscribers has been awesome. We're nearing 3,200. We're trying to get there. Maybe before the end of the week, we'll be able to reach that. But if you haven't yet, highly suggest you hit the subscribe button. Also, too, hitting that bell next to it, it will get a notification straight over here to your phone when we do go live. Definitely, if there's anything breaking, certainly whenever the Bucs do find their next offensive coordinator or things are headed into that direction, we'll jump on here live for you guys. So you want to have that notification sent straight to your phone. And by doing so, definitely hit that subscribe button down below or on your phone somewhere. Anything else, gentlemen? I mean, we've got a busy rest of these next couple of days, man. A lot of interviews happening for the Bucs, and we're still monitoring. I think, Levante David said that he's still waiting to see what he wants to do with his, potential retirement, if that's going to do it. I mean, we're all leaning that is going to be the case for sure.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of eyes are on Mike Evans in the direction. But like we said earlier, I think it's going to rely on what they do at the offensive coordinator position for sure.
Yeah, and shout out Nick Carter. He believes that the new OC is going to be of the Backstreet Boys for you millennials out there that ride with me. Yeah, Nick Carter believes it's going to be Todd Monken. On shout out JC and his show as well for having the great Nick Carter on there. So awesome stuff from him, being able to hop in. At first, he thought it was going to be Mike McDaniel, is what his sources were telling him, and then now all of a sudden it's Todd Monken. So who knows? All of us are crazy. Every Buccaneers fan's crazy. We're all going to pay attention to it, and we're going to keep you guys updated at BucsGameday.com.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, guys. Well, that's going to do it for us. Appreciate everybody hanging out with us. Y'all enjoy the rest of y'all's week. And if we don't see you before next week, have a great weekend. And check out all the content, BucsGameday.com, all kinds of things, and deep dives into all these coach interviews. And River's doing a great job over there on that, and along with the rest of our staff, including Caleb. That's going to do it for us. Peace out, and we'll see you next week on Hear the Cannons.
Fire the cannons.